Today, I want to talk about the displeasure of playing in the bot apocalypse because recently I decided to log on over like the last couple of days because of just scheduling that I ended up having to play at like 4 in the morning UK time. And unfortunately, when you play World of Tanks console at 4 o'clock in the morning, pretty much every single game that you're playing is just filled with bots, which is not good considering that I am, clicking on the multiplayer mode. The mode that is supposed to be multiplayer against other people. And this video, we're just going to talk about just generally, bots, how they actually play, give my critique of bots in general versus real players, and we'll just jump in and play some artillery whilst we're waiting, mainly because I don't want to play any other class whilst we're making the video. But obviously, load-in times are an issue when there's less players online. Obviously, at 4 in the morning, there's a lot less players that are playing World of Tanks console that maybe you wouldn't see with World of Tanks PC. Hence why they implemented bots in the first place into the game. But I don't want to make this into like a negative towards necessarily the game, but more the implementation of bots into the game, because my problem being is, okay, there aren't that many people playing late at night. It's going to affect a lot less people than the general player base, because the reason why I'm getting into games with bots, and maybe why you might get into games with bots, is because you're playing it off-peak times, and there are less players online, so it's not affecting everyone. But the problem is that, if you do play in different time zones, so maybe you're not in the NA, or like your daytime activity, your kind of 5 o'clock after work, it happens to align with not being at peak times during European time zones, so like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock European, all the way to about 10 o'clock European, and then that would be like 5 o'clock US as well. That is also a peak time, so you can swap servers to the US server where you're playing on worse ping, but obviously you can get into games. If you play in a range that you're not actually meeting up with those time zones, you're going to be like significantly knackered, basically, where you're playing a lot of bot games, which is not ideal. And the reason behind that is because they don't want people waiting in queue for a long period of time. But the issue is I don't want to play against bots. So if it means that I have to spend an extra minute, 2 minutes just waiting for like 1 or 2 minutes, I can go grab a coffee, I can go grab a drink, whatever it might be, then I would much rather that than put me into a bot lobby where I'm playing only against bots, or playing against 50% of the team being bots. And I generally think, unless there is like really, really low amounts of people playing the game, that there's no real reason why, you don't just allow us to have less people. I turned down the volume because I am getting ear blasted by the game volume right now. But my point being is that I just don't understand why they have to go into having bots all the time. Like, I'm trying to play a multiplayer game. Please do not put bots in my lobbies. I do not want to see them. I am happy to accept the fact that I am going to have to wait a little bit longer. And I think most people are the exact same. There's obviously the co-op mode. So, if you want to play against bots, you can play co-op, which is literally against bots. There is a whole game mode created for that entire feature, which is why I think it makes no sense having bots in general, because, if you want to get into bot lobbies, or maybe you don't want to wait to get into lobbies and you're happy to play against bots, then you can play the mode that is only bots. Like, why like should I be kind of subject to that? And not me as just a general player, but the general player base as we go. So it's one of those things that I think never used to happen. And whilst maybe the player base number is smaller, it's still by no means bad. There is still plenty of active users on a daily basis, subject to people saying that the game is dying, that the game will never survive. It is the least players ever. It actually is still higher than a lot of other games in the genre. And yeah, I don't think that the game is as people try to make out. But I do think that it is negatively impacting the gameplay of a lot of people. It's also very, very annoying for anyone going for marks of excellence. If you are going for marks of excellence as a player that only has the time zones where you are playing in an active time where there aren't any bots, you're going to be at a significant disadvantage, because guess what? Bots are much worse than human people. As much as people would maybe say that bots, their teammate act like bots, they're just the same as a bot or whatever. Like, it's just a meme. It's not actually true. Bots are significantly worse, even than like players who are brand new to the game or whatever. So yeah, that definitely sucks. So hopefully they sort that out and they try and kind of come up with a solution that isn't just kind of being this horrendous system where sometimes you're getting into bots with like 80% and then the next game you get into 100% players. It just feels very inconsistent if you're playing at those time zones. And even at peak times, sometimes it randomly puts in like a bot, like even though it's like peak time, and I suspect that there would be no problem actually finding real players. I don't get it. Why is there bots at all really in the multiplayer game mode? I just, in all fairness, just want them to be removed. I think it would be a much better way of kind of avoiding the whole drama. I'm pretty sure anyone that you ask does not enjoy playing against bots in the multiplayer game mode. It just it's just funny. So yes, it was a weird thing that they did decide to put it in. I understand the reasoning, but I just think that it's a band-aid fix to a problem that is like in the game that maybe needs a different solution. It is not actually solving the core issue. And so yeah, I think when you get to those periods where there's a lot of less people online, maybe the combining of finding some way to combine servers or whatever, or have some kind of mutual server that like basically everyone goes onto. I have no idea if that's even possible, but I assume Wargaming would have thought of this as a potential option, but like just basically agglomerating the player base that's on, because that would basically make up what a peak time in one of the server regions would be. And I'm sure people would give up, you know, having slightly worse ping or whatever, if it was like a server based in like the middle or whatever. So that would be my personal opinion of what I think should be done. But obviously, I am just one player. There we go. Now that is what I'm on about with regards to being artillery. But hopefully you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. It's like, it's not ideal for competitive players at all either. Like, you know, you're trying to get your marks of excellence. You're trying to get yourself into that range where, you know, you're trying to get to 100%, and you're playing against people that are playing against bots on purpose, and that's boosting up the damage numbers, which makes it devalue the whole marks of excellence system. And whilst I think Wargaming understand this and they want to do something about it, obviously that's not in the game yet. And so hopefully that will also be sorted and that will be fixed, that maybe you don't get any marks of excellence progress if you play against bots at all. Or maybe the damage that you get against the bot, like, the problem is like, whatever you do, people are going to get annoyed because of the fact they have no, like, you know, if you say you can't get any marks of excellence progress against the bots, then it's not their fault that the bot is in the game in the first place. So how do you combat that? How can you avoid that? Because if what that basically means is, if anyone plays in like Australia, where the time zones are like 12 hours difference, and when they are like 5 o'clock, it's actually when essentially no one's playing the game in Europe and North America, which is where the majority of players of World of Tanks console, according to my demographics anyway. That's not stats from Wargaming themselves. I have no idea what the official stats are, but that's what I would presume is going to be European, North America. But if you're playing in Australia, that would basically mean that like no one is going to get marks of excellence, because if you do it the way that you don't get any marks of excellence for dealing damage against bots, and you're only being able to play in games with bots, then you're not going to get marks of excellence, which removes a core feature that people love within the game, which is grinding marks of excellence. So how do you combat it? Well, do you then allow people to get marks of excellence from playing against bots? Well, no, because then all of the majority of the players then have to deal with the fact that, you know, you're not going to be you're going to find it much more difficult to actually get marks of excellence than it should actually be, because people are just boosting marks of excellence using bots as a easy way of doing it, which is also very scummy. So what do you do? Is there a middle ground? No, the real issue is the fact that there's bots in the game in the first place. Get rid of the bots, get rid of the problem. Stop trying to band-aid fix something that is obviously not right with the game by, trying to add in bots. If it means I have to spend an extra minute or 2 minutes in the queue to be able to get into a game, perfect, I'll do it. If I really hate it and I hate the loading times, I'll go and play Cold War. I'll go and play co-op. I'll go and play a different tier. You adjust to how it is actually playing in the game. That is up to you. And I think that is something that is very important that Wargaming understand when it comes to bots. So I kind of wanted to talk about the topic. Obviously, these are just my suggestions. I don't know what you guys actually would suggest that Wargaming do, because that's just my personal opinion. I would just remove all bots from multiplayer games. And if it means a server has to wait a little bit longer to get enough players to play the tech tree that you're playing, or the tier that you're playing, and wait up the teams roughly, or maybe they just put you into a game against only players that is like they used to do, with like 10 people on a side, where maybe you didn't get a full team, and so you're playing 10v10 or 5v5 or 6v6 or something like that. Maybe those don't count for marks of excellence, but maybe it gets you into a game, you're enjoying it. Either way, you're still playing the game. I don't know. I think that is important. And maybe they rework it so if you do get into a 5v5 game, depending on the percentage hit point pool of damage that you deal, or like they weight it so that they extrapolate how much damage you would have done against, say, if you do 2k damage in a 5-man game, that would equate to dealing 6k damage or something. I don't know how you could go about it with regards to, because of the fact that there's less players in the game. They could probably find out what the data points are with regards to people playing 5-mans versus 15-mans, what the difference in damage typically is for each type of player base bracket who already have marks of excellence on their tanks, and then kind of work out a ratio that suits the game. That would probably make sense. And I think that would eliminate the whole, problems with marks of excellence that people have been badgering on about and playing against bots, which is just very infuriating. And especially if you play at certain times, you can be in a game with like 3 other players, like genuinely 3 other players. I've had it before. And for me as a content creator, if I hop on and I'm playing against like 27 bots, like, I could deal 10k damage quite easily if I'm playing tier 10 against a load of bots, like a lot easier than, not saying every game, I'm just saying like the top end, I could get 10k damage relatively frequently against bots, whereas maybe you would get 7k against real players. So like, I'm not going to showcase a game, even though I would do 3k damage more if it's just against bots. It's not intuitive gameplay. The bots itself is an issue, because if the bots themselves were a bit more intuitive, a bit more actually functioning, because right now they basically are literally just so bad. They are so bad in how they move. They don't have any level of like thought process. Like, it's so bad. They all go to like weird positions. They don't tend to go into like the heat. Like, surely Wargaming have heat maps as to what areas typically people go in different types of tanks. Because you get like 10 tanks on your team going into like the weirdest positions I've ever seen in my life. You've got them basically where they come into contact with a player and then they stop. They don't move, even though in reality, if you were a player, you would still move forward to like a different position to get away from that opponent and find a different position. And like, I think that the actual AI or whatever is like choosing their pathing is quite bad when it comes down to that. So that is really an issue. Like, say for example, you meet a bot and there's like 3 bots or something, they just stop and they stay there. And if you're on the enemy team and your team have just all stopped in one area, they're not moving, they're not doing anything, and like there's just one player on the enemy team, like that's a significant disadvantage. Like, and obviously you have no idea where the bots are going to go at the beginning of a game, so you could literally get shafted by the fact that like 7 bots all went one corner and they meet one tank and then they stop and they hold off and they don't do anything, and then if that guy pokes, they all shoot at the exact same time at him. Like, it's just not a good gameplay like thing. If it isn't good for the gameplay, I think that is probably the worst thing that you can do in your game, regardless of whether it's World of Tanks. Like, if it's bad for gameplay and the like playability of the game, the enjoyment of the game, like, get rid of it. You wouldn't like go to, I don't know, a chicken restaurant and they serve you up moldy cheese or something like that instead of chicken, and you're kind of going, I mean, first off, it's not what I wanted, which would be, a multiplayer game against players. But then it's moldy. It's bad. It's bad. It's terrible. Like, it's diabolical when you actually get that as well. So it's not even a good quality thing that you didn't want. It's a thing that you didn't want, and it's bad quality, in my opinion, obviously. So that is definitely something that it just infuriates me. And whilst it's not a massive, massive, like, game breaking issue, it is noticeable, and I think it is very important for players that aren't playing in the regions that have the time zones where it is most populous. So, it's all well and good saying I have no issues, I get into play field games all of the time, but you also don't live in a region probably that is like where that's not possible, where they would have to log on at like, work hours during a weekday at like 11 o'clock in the day to be able to get into a game to play, which is not feasible because they're working. So, they can only play at 5 o'clock or something like that. Dad gamers, you guys know, casual players of the game. So it basically limits all of that region from basically playing the core game, and they're just not going to play the game, to be honest. That's what's going to happen. You're limiting how many people play the game, which makes the problem even worse because now people don't want to play the game. There's going to be less people playing the game. There's going to be more bot lobbies, and the cycle repeats itself. So, yeah, that is something I think that does need to be addressed. I'm hoping Wargaming will try and address it. I'm not trying to say like Wargaming are bad for not doing something about it. I just don't think the solution that's currently in the game is like workable. I don't think the general consensus of people who play the game think it's good to have bots in the game. I think that they would much rather, from what I've seen from you guys' comments, from my own experience, I don't think it's better to have bots than waiting an extra 2 minutes in the queue to get into a game with real players. That's what I play the game for. I want to be playing against a real person. That's what it comes down to. It's the whole psychology of why people play multiplayer video games, is to, when they have a good game, they know it's because they're dealing damage, they're good or whatever, and they've dominated the other players who are sitting there crying in their little man caves going, I got taken out by this guy, like, not in an ego way, but that's what you want. You want that, like, yes, I did well against someone else or whatever. And so, yeah, bots, please get out of the game, at least on the multiplayer version. It's annoying. Hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of my opinion and a critique of definitely the bots in general. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure to like the video if you did and you want to see some more videos. If you like these types of videos as well, let me know that you like the type of video where we do more talking, and obviously I can play whilst I'm talking. Just let me know. I'll try and find videos that you guys like, and if you think that you find certain videos more enjoyable than other videos, or like different styles of videos, I'll experiment over the next few weeks with different styles of videos, and then just let me know what you like about the videos, what you would change, that sort of thing. I'll try and make the best thing for everyone. So yeah, there we go. Thank you. See you in the next one. Goodbye.